Hey everybody, Zach again at newtutorial.com, coming in making a video for you today. I wanted to make a video on halal because this halal meat, the food stuff, there's a lot of stuff going around on Facebook, social media, websites, all kinds of places where Torah people, Messianic, Hebrew roots, whatever you want to call us today, even Christians are really getting worked up about this halal food certification. And you know, I laugh because some of you guys out there are really getting worked up over this. And I just think, I think you don't understand what is really going on here. And that it's a big scam. It's a giant scam. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to prove it to you. It's a giant scam. And when you research this and you find out what's really going on here, people are in the Hebrew roots and Torah and even Christian communities are equating halal meats with food sacrificed to idols. And there couldn't be a further thing from the truth about this. No. All right. So what does halal mean? Halal means permissible. Very similar to what things are labeled sometimes as kosher. Being able to eat these things because they're clean, they're Torah clean. Based on what Torah says in Leviticus 11 and, what the Talmud says is permissible. But, so what happens with all this? And Joanne, who is my mother-in-law, have some firsthand experience with this. She used to work at Pilgrim's Pride. And at Pilgrim's Pride, every so often, she worked in accounts receivable, and she would get a bill that she had to, the company would pay. And it would be from an imam who would come into the company and go into the factory and say a prayer over the factory, over the food that was in the factory. And they would have to pay the imam, for this service. And so that they could put, marked as halal on their packaging. Guys, this is a giant scam. It's a giant shakedown. It has nothing to do with food sacrificed to idols. And I've seen some people on Facebook get really worked up over this. So much so that I'm like, I'm doing a video on this. This is just retarded. This is complete nonsense. This is not has anything to do with Acts 15 or anything to do with in the Torah, in the book of Numbers. Let's go ahead and read Numbers. Let's go ahead and read that verse. Numbers 25 verse 2. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bow down to their gods. And then also a verse that's also often used for this is Psalms 106 verse 28. Talking about the same incident. They joined themselves also unto Baal Peor and ate the sacrifices of the dead. Now this is actually a more accurate verse of what was going on there during that time when Baal Peor and Baal was turning the hearts of the Hebrews, the Israelites, away from God into their other gods. They were actually doing memorial services and parties for their elders, their great ones who have died in the past, and their gods. And there's an article that I found, a really great article that really breaks down this whole meat sacrifice to idols that we see Paul referring to time and time again in the New Testament. And I'm going to link to it in the description below. And so please check out that article if you really want to dig deeper into this, into Paul's meaning of and the New Testament phrases meat sacrifice to idols. You really need to research this article because I think it proves without a shadow of a doubt that what they're actually doing here is having memorial services of people who have died in the past. And they're having banquets, they're having necromancy, which is the true form, the meaning of necromancy is talking to the dead or trying to communicate with the dead, and which breaks down into drunkenness and then sexual orgies and things like that, perversions. That's what these things were happening. That's what Paul is referring to when meat sacrificed to idols, because they would go to these temples of the dead where they would have these banquets and they would eat this food as a memorial unto the people who have died. And then in many cultures during that time, people who had died, they elevated them unto God's status, which is exactly what happened to Nimrod, if you think about it. Nimrod died and was elevated unto a God status. He was a mighty man and, as in strong, and when he died, he was elevated to God's status. And that's where you get a lot of the gods that people, these false gods that people worshiped back then. But they did it for everybody. Anyone who was great amongst the eyes of the people, when they died, their elders, their patriarchs, were elevated unto God's status. That's a distinct difference between the Hebrews and the other peoples of the world. We didn't do that to Abraham. Nobody worships Abraham. But what does even the Catholic Church do today? When a person who is great amongst the Catholic Church, a saint, is made a saint and then idolized, they make him into statues. You know, there was a story I wanted to tell you guys. So when me and my wife bought our first house years ago, we had the sale had closed. We were spending the first night in our new house, and there comes a knock at the door. Dun, 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 dun. And we opened it up, and lo and behold, it's the lady who used to own the house. And we had met her previously during one of the times at going to view the house. And she says, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have a statue buried in the front yard. It's Saint Joseph, and I need to dig it up. I just didn't want to alarm you because it was getting kind of dark out there, and she didn't want to dig in our front yard without telling us because it was now our yard. And sure enough, she goes out there and digs up this little statue about yay high of Joseph that she had buried in the yard. And she explained to us that, in the Catholic tradition, it was good luck to bury the statue Joseph in the yard because Joseph was a carpenter, and so they equated that with if you wanted to sell a house and do so and be prosperous at selling your house, you took this little statue of Joseph and then you buried it in your yard. And then once you sold the house, you would take that little statue and put it in a place of prominence in your new house. A place where that was elevated and everyone could see it in your new house. Dude, that's exactly what the Catholic Church does. I mean, think about it. You go into a Catholic church, you can light candles for what? The people who have died. You're elevating the status of the dead. It's exactly what the Torah says not to do. And this article that I'm going to link in the description below, folks, go check this out. It makes a very clear case that what's happening in the New Testament, in Acts 15 and other places in Corinthians, when Paul is talking about meat sacrificed unto idols, it's talking about these memorial banquets that were held for the dead. And Psalms 106:28, they joined themselves also unto Baal Peor and ate the sacrifices of the dead. That's really what's going on here. And you can equate this, breaking down of, it's bad translation is what it comes down to. That's why we don't understand these things today, because we don't understand and there's plenty of historical evidence of antiquity to prove this out. Check out this article. Folks, what's happening at these factories and this halal stuff is a scam. Really the kosher stuff is the same way. However, the halal stuff is a little more it's just evil. Imams or whoever goes into these companies and says, hey, how would you like to open up your customer base to a broader audience? If you put our mark on your food products, our people who are part of our religious system will buy more of your product. And the company says, well, that's a great idea. How do we do that? Well, we have to come in, we have to inspect your facilities, make sure check your ingredients list, and then we'll come in, say a prayer over the factory and over the food that's there, and then we'll put our mark on there, and you pay us, of course, a nice fee, and we'll do all that, and then our customers our people will become your customers and buy your product. It's a scam. It's a shakedown. It's totally a shakedown. And so they do that, and there's no altar. It's not like the imam comes in, takes the cow, slaughters it on an altar, and then brings it to Walmart. Okay? That's not happening here. And that's not the meaning of, and that article I'm posting this proves that that's not the meaning of the meat sacrificed unto idols to begin with anyway. Check this out, folks. I mean, you guys got to look into this whole halal thing, and even the kosher thing. What's really insidious about the whole halal thing, and why I totally agree. I mean, if you can help it, you shouldn't buy the halal stuff. But here's the deal, folks. The FDA does not mandate that these halal companies, this food that's halal, put the halal markings on your food. So here's the deal. The real skinny is, you could be eating this halal food and not know it because it's not marked. The FDA does not mandate that it be marked. So the only real way you know that you're not eating halal foods anyway is to grow your own. One of the reasons why we grow our own food and raise our own food. Now, we still buy stuff at stores sometimes, here and there. I'm not saying we've never eaten halal food. I don't know. But I can assure you it's not meat sacrificed to idols. Okay? So don't get all worked up over this. Oh, there's a wasp in here. don't get all worked up over this. It's not. It's a scam. It's a shakedown, and the kosher people do it the same way. Hey, how would you like to buy from our Jewish customer or Jewish people? They'll be your customers if you pay us this fee and allow us to come. Check your ingredients list, and we'll say a prayer over your thing. Every so often, every month we'll come in and we'll send you a bill, and then you'll be gracious enough to you'll have the privilege to sell to our our churchgoers. The thing that's really insidious about the halal stuff, though, is that it's been proven time and time and time again through court cases, through our legal system, that a lot of the money, not all of it, a lot of the money that comes from the halal certifications goes to fund terror over in the Middle East. It's been proven time and time again that that money is going over to the Palestinians. It's been funneled through different channels to work its way into the hands of terrorists to kill innocent people. And so that if you want to avoid halal foods, that's the reason why you avoid halal foods. Okay? It's not because it's some meat sacrificed to idols, because you have no idea what you're talking about, if that's the argument you're doing. And if you really want to make a difference, folks, to these companies like Tyson or Pilgrim's Pride or whoever else that are putting these markings on their food, is to email them and say, hey, as long as this halal stuff is on your food packages, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Because the sole reason they put those markings on the food packages is to increase their customer base. And if they find out, if they get enough emails from people like you who say, I'm not buying your products because you're funding terror, they're like, whoa, we're not gaining customers, we're actually losing customers. You know what? Here's the deal. You don't know. They may take the halal markings off because the FDA doesn't mandate that they have to be on there anyway. And you'll just keep eating it, not thinking that it's not halal, but it really is. Meaning some imam is getting paid to come in and just say a prayer over the factory. It's not meat sacrificed to idols. Bottom line, folks, you want to avoid halal meats? Grow your own food. Raise your own animals. Then you know where it comes from and who's prayed over it or whatever else is happening to that animal. That's the bottom line. You want to be kosher. You want to be set apart and make sure you're not eating a bunch of garbage, a bunch of GMO fed, corn-fed animals, whatever, all the time. Grow your own food. Get a garden. Get a couple goats. Get some sheep. Get some chickens. And then you know where your food comes from. All right, we'll leave it at that. Go home, read your Bible. Thanks.